help businesses in sink or swim measures, or put all efforts and resources into long-term industries to see if that's the smarter way to go? Do you know the answer? I don't. But perhaps the proposition team here has something more to share with us on that. So, thank you, Alison. And let me now bring the second speaker from the first proposition team, Meera, to continue the proposition's case.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. To recap, the Minister outlined the feasibility of prioritizing assistance schemes as opposed to long-term industrial development. She also explained the current economic climate that called for this initiative. I will outline Singapore's strategic strengths and historical trends for the past years. But before I continue, I'd like to address a few issues brought up by the opposition. Firstly, we did define short-term. We consider it 3 years to build up to get yourself out of the red zone, and 3 more years to show that you have a steady upward climb. And you also mentioned that we have to pour resources into education and health. Look around you, everyone here is educated. We do have education, especially in Singapore. Do not bring the globe into this. We are talking only about Singapore here. And we are also not a third world country here. We have good health resources. We can go to the clinic. We have so many allocations to help us with all our problems. And you also mentioned taxpayers and money. Taxpayers have to provide something. The government cannot provide for everything. We do not depend on the government, but we do want a little support now and then, and I think this is pretty fair on our part as well. You also mentioned that supporting, yes.
What we are trying to say is that we should not use taxpayers' money to help these companies that prove to be inefficient because they are unable to tide over this crisis.
We are saying that we can help these people with taxpayers' money. It's only with this money we can help these people. And since Singapore has such a large number of family-owned businesses, we are in fact helping them with their own money. So in the end, the money goes back to them. Carrying on, I'd like to move back to my speech. Let's consider a historical trend right now. The 1998 Asian economic crisis was a trying time for the region. Even then, the government managed the situation by helping companies to cut business costs. This was a key agenda in the 1999 budget. The government implemented a 10.5 billion cost reduction package covering all the key elements of business, including wages, rentals, utilities, and transportation costs. Rental rebates were granted as part of these measures. This allowed companies the breathing space that they needed to increase their profit margin, protecting them from bankruptcy. It certainly worked then, so why not now when we have more businesses in Singapore? From the years since the crisis, government has been encouraging entrepreneurship among the population. If in time of crisis we don't prioritize their needs, the signal is that of a government that's abandoning its initiatives. This especially can be avoided since the necessary infrastructure to facilitate self-sustainability of industry is already in place. On one hand, it's about survival of businesses. On the other, it's about further development of industries. Development connotating that these industries are in no danger of drowning, since the issue is not about the industry's survival, but about the development. Considering Singapore's strategic strengths. No, thank you, ma'am. Singapore is known for family-owned businesses. This was stated by Mr. S. Iswaran, the Senior Minister of State for Trade and Industry, in the inaugural Asia Business Centre Conference in December 2008. This will actually boost investor confidence in these companies. With the government's encouragement to allow businesses to thrive by keeping red tape to a minimum, there will be further progression of Singapore's role as a portal for MNCs to access and do business in. By prioritizing and aligning our budget to suit the current economic climate, we are proving our reputation for being responsive to changes. So let us also prove our adaptability to new and unforeseen circumstances by altering our outlook. We have close to 760,000 people working in short-term businesses here, people. We have so many people dependent on businesses, so it is fair to say that we should help them. We, as the Ministry of Finance, should be contributing something to their growth. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, today I have one main point of contention for the proposition today, and that is on the short term versus the long term. Now we see that the problem in the short term is that
it will create a crutch mentality for businesses. And these businesses will rely on the government for a long period of time. And, no thank you ma'am. And there will be the incentive for businesses to prosper should not stem from government support, but instead from their own will to succeed and survive in a global market. So our policy, as we will show you later, will also include competition. And we must rely on competition in the global market for businesses to survive, and then they can benefit greater to the economy. What will happen if we rely on this government support for a long period of time? We see that then the government conditions for having a bailout will never ever stop, and that the government may offer a bailout again, no thank you ma'am, again and again. And as a result, they have to take more of the taxpayers' money. And we say honestly, how many family businesses is this going to help, even if it takes money from families who own businesses? So we see that we should go with the long-term prospect, and that industry development is more important. No, thank you, sir. We should think of the long term so that the problem does not resurface again, and no, thank you, ma'am. And that over time we can stop the problem once and for all. So moving on to my point for today. My first speaker has already demonstrated her point there on reshaping the society. So let me continue to outline our policy. This economic crisis has shown us several things. Firstly, no thank you sir, we need to be prepared. It is not the first time a financial crisis has mounted to a global scale, as one can see from the Great Depression, which happened during the 1930s. Secondly, it highlights the necessity to not only tide over the current crisis, but to rise over and beyond it. Though we are only affected by minor waves as compared to other hard-hit countries, planning industry development is important in order to move in the right direction. In this manner, long-term stability will be our key to maintaining strong and secure economic and social spheres. Now, the phrase infrastructure investment has been capturing the attention of world leaders and governmental bodies of superpower states. Current US President-elect Barack Obama, for instance, is planning on a long-term stimulus plan which places emphasis on investing in infrastructure projects such as the building of roads, tunnels, and repairing of bridges and schools, to be enforced over a span of 10 years. Yes, ma'am?
Why are you bringing infrastructure in here? The Ministry of Trade and Industry is not here to answer your questions, you know.
Ma'am, but we see that infrastructure can deal with the long-term problems as well as the short-term problems for now. As I will show you later, infrastructure reforms can actually provide jobs to those people in need of employment now, and it can actually solve these problems as well as the long term. So why not go with industry development? No, thank you, sir. So continuing with my speech, one may argue a general idea that Singapore's MRTs are efficient enough, her roads devoid of congestion, fool me not, I hear an ERP beeping, or her broadband signal speed lightning quick. On the contrary, as I've shown you just now, many of these processes need streamlining to increase proficiency. Better accessibility and decreased risk of breakdown will lead to smoother running systems and a society that can run full steam ahead. Investing in infrastructure provides more value to our economy rather than simply funneling more money into institutions. For example, a method like the bailout has tangible risks involved and may even create a crutch mentality for businesses. There is no guarantee that a bailout will stop all the problems once and for all. No, thank you, ma'am. On the other hand, industry development would push businesses to struggle for survival, creating an arena in which to compete in. And worthy, successful businesses will in turn flourish and contribute greatly to the country's economy. Infrastructure projects will also provide jobs for people. Hence, they present short-term benefits by putting people to work, yet leaving behind long-term infrastructure improvements that will benefit citizens for years to come. Heading the green revolution are states like Ontario, which aim to keep ahead of its competitors using green technology. By following this trend, we can preserve what limited resources we have in Singapore, live less environmentally destructive lifestyles, and in the possibility of an external threat, can rely on ourselves. In addition, it would reduce energy costs for companies and consumers alike. Lastly, infrastructure investment can provide substantial returns that boost the economy. For example, Australia has determined that with appropriate infrastructure reforms can boost the GDP up to 2% per annum. So in order to have an immediate effect on the economy, investments in infrastructure projects should start now. Similarly, I have 3 things to say to the future: invest, improve, and believe in infrastructure. Thank you.